Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Stark County High School football preview. Hard to believe, it's football time once again here in Stark County. Yours truly, Scott Davis, here at St. Hieronymus Church, the annual kickoff, as all the coaches from the area have been invited to participate. And the man who just told me he's been doing this for 15 years as program MC, our friend Dr. Peter Michaelos, joins us. And Doc, it doesn't seem possible.
No.
They say the older we get, the quicker time goes by.
I know. I keep getting old. I keep just realize with 50 years, and if you add the basketball, I've been doing this basketball will be my 30th time emceeing. So it's a lot of jokes to remember. I can't keep them all in line.
Well, the bottom line is McKinley fans will love the fact when the first year was this event, that you were part of this event.
Yeah, well, it was I took over in '98 when they won the year they had their second championship. And but we've been doing this over 35 years. I think we started back in '68 with 6 coaches and donuts. We did it with the Jewish Community Center and their men's club over there, and then just blossomed into 30 people, 6 coaches, into 300 people and 20 coaches. So it's a great event. But Stark County is a hotbed for high school athletics. I think one of the most interesting counties in the country for their sports. Yeah.
And I would say too, another growth, not only in the number of coaches you invite, but moving 4 or 5 years ago to this new facility. And I think it bears repeating how this facility came about and how it's helped in the growth of this program.
Yeah, we were very grateful to receive a $2 million donation from a parishioner that parishioner is now 102 years old actually. And so he wanted to have a center, and so the center was built, and we have dinners, weddings, and our previews. Yeah.
Looking back at the success of the recent Pro Football Hall of Fame week, always, no matter who's talking, Steve Perry, whoever, they're talking about the volunteers who make that event possible. I know this is a bit of a smaller scale than that activity, but the same formula provides, and that is the fact that so many volunteers step in from the church to help out.
Yeah, well, we have Ron Dara and all the. He's been doing this for years. He cooks for the Summerfest too, which is a huge event that we have. Ladies Philiptos Society helps to serve. We got John Kalamas, Steve Diamond, and Vince Arrigo as co-chairman, and then Gus Condis and John Sakladiu. They help out quite a bit. So without the help of the men's club and all the volunteers, this couldn't be possible.
And I told you this many times, as we've covered this for more than a decade. I think the bottom line is it's so tough to get these coaches because now they're so busy. Get them all together one place at one time. I tried it years ago, and it was a challenge. So I salute you for doing this, and we thank you, as always, for allowing us to be part of it.
I appreciate it. I think the coaches enjoy. I think they enjoy the camaraderie between each other, the chance they can sit down and relax with the fans. I think the fans enjoy seeing them also. But I appreciate you coming. It's been great.
Dr. Michaelos, as always, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, in one respect, you could say the 2013 Canton-McKinley Bulldogs training camp opened this football season at Fawcett Stadium, picking them up and laying them down. But we're not talking about regular football stuff. As Todd Phillips will tell us, it was cheers. And that's kind of a tradition, but we start there because that's when we're taping this. By the time this airs, you probably would have had a scrimmage or two under your belts. But the fact of the matter is we are taping this in advance, so let's talk about something fresh in your mind and the players' minds. I've always found that fascinating because it's good for them, it's good for the Hall of Fame progress, and it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, it's a great little tradition that's been started at McKinley to be in partners with the Hall of Fame committee and setting up and breaking down the chairs. I think our kids really get a lot out of it and enjoy doing it.
Do they get a chance at all to intermingle with any of the Hall of Famers, or how does that work out during the course of a week?
Yeah, this year actually we formed, if anybody watched it, we formed a line as the Hall of Famers walked down to the main stage. Our guys were on each side as the Hall of Famers walked, down the center aisle to the stage. So that was a pretty cool experience for them.
I bet. Now, not much to talk about because you're just starting into training and all, but let's talk about what's happened from the end of the last season till today in general terms, and how, you know, the weightlifting, the things that people don't see, but on game night, you hope the results will come based on that work.
Yeah, well, we start as soon as we can in January. You know, you give them the mandatory 30 days off, and we get started back in the weight room and stay consistent on strength and speed training for about the remainder of the school year. And then in the preseason, once the summer hits, you're allowed to 10 mini camp days that we used very well this year. And our team, the progression of our team has come a long way. It's easy to see that it's year 2 and not year 1 as we were sitting here last year. The kids know what to expect. They're picking things up a lot easier, and it's just a smoother process.
Don't you think it has to be a win-win, the fact that you're more comfortable in the position, your assistants are more comfortable, the kids are more comfortable? How does that translate, or how do you hope that translates into year 2?
Well, everybody knows everybody now. The kids know what to expect from us when we go to practice. We know what to expect from the kids, and we got very demanding coaches that are doing a great job on the field as we speak. And they're just, it's a great group of coaches and kids to be around this year.
Let's break down each unit, and we start with the offense, which I think can still be a strength of this team in terms of experience, because your quarterback is back, your number 1 running back is back, one of your receivers is back, but you have 2 pretty big holes to fill due to graduation. And on the O-line, you lost some good guys, you have a couple good guys coming back. Talk to me in general terms about the offense.
The offense, it's always hard losing guys. You never want to lose guys, but you know, in high school sports, guys graduate and move on. And this year, what you'll notice at practice is a bunch of guys competing for a number of different spots that are available, and sometimes that's a really, really good thing for a football team. I mean, competition breeds success, and we're definitely seeing the results of the competition.
Defensively, you've got, I think the concern experience-wise might be your front 7. Jamal Davis may be one of the few exceptions, but a lot of the guys were seniors you used there. In the secondary, you used a lot of different guys, and you've got some of those guys back. Defensively, how concerned are you in terms of experience, game experience?
I don't think we'd be concerned at all. I mean, the guys that are over there playing now had seen some time last year, whether they were starter or not. Also, like I said, you know, our coaches are doing a great job preparing these kids for week 1. Against Akron Buchtel, and the guys that we have out there repping through and rotating in the first couple groups, we're very happy with the progress that we're at now.
And you sat here with me a year ago and announced that this would not be 2 platoon football, that the best players would play, and that a lot of your starters would be on special teams. I think the success is in the numbers and statistics of what you accomplished special teams-wise a year ago. You've got your punter back, you have your end of the year starting place kicker back. Your returnees, you're going to have some holes to fill there. But talk to me about special teams, and I get the feeling they're going to be every bit as important this year as they were last season. Oh yeah,
they're called special teams for a reason. I mean, they were very special for us last year, and we hope that they're just as effective this year. It's 1/3 of the football game, and that's how we treat it. The best guys will be on the special teams and hopefully making impacts as we did last year.
Let's talk about your schedule, and I'll center on the first 3 games because that's your non-league, and that's where we've seen total change in terms of your opponents. You had a good ball game with Walsh Jesuit a year ago, and I expect the same against an Akron Buchtel team that, yes, they were 4-6, but dig into those numbers. Their first 2 losses were to Massillon and St. Ed's. Not too bad for the first 2 opponents on the road. And then a game that I'm sure you're familiar with because you're a product of Steubenville. The last game of the year, they go to Steubenville, and they only lost by 3 down there. So to me, they're a much better team, and it wasn't that many years ago that Ricky Powers brought a team down to the stadium to play in a state Final Four game.
Yep. Yeah, Ricky does a great job. And the one thing about Akron Buchtel is they're not afraid to play anybody. And, you know, our hats are off to them. They'll schedule and play anybody that's out there. And, you know, they're going to be a great football team for us to open up with. They're going to have athletes all over the field, and we're going to have to play good, hard-nosed Camp McKinley football to come out with a win, and we're excited about the opener.
You literally go north of the border for your second opponent, Sir Frederick Banting out of Canada. And I'm always interested in the fact that when you play a team from across the border, it's probably a lot harder to get film or at least to get a feel for them. So in a game like that, do you really worry more about Canton McKinley and how you played in that opener and how you can improve and then take it from there?
Yeah, we're going to try to treat it as the same as we treat everybody else, but I'm sure there's going to be, some differences in there. Film exchange, we'll try to get a hold of something. We'll give them something if they want, but we don't want to go in blind. We want to prepare for them as it's any other game. So whatever resources are there for us on them, we're going to take full advantage of and be prepared to play a football game.
And I see beyond your concerns two major positives. Well, one that is your concern. The one that's not is the fact here's a team coming down. They get to see the Hall of Fame. They get to see high school football at its finest. That's got to be thrilling for them. And number two, the fact that you this year have a full 10-game schedule to play, and that's got to make you feel good.
Yeah, that's a very big relief and a big weight lifted off our shoulders. I mean, it's a very difficult, especially in high school, to have that bye weekend there, and keeping the kids focused and trying to switch your practice plans and do those sort of things that you wouldn't have to do if you had a 10-game schedule. So we're very pleased all across the board that there's a 10-game schedule.
And I see there's no breather in week 3. Dublin Kaufman, who won their first 9 games a year ago, lost their next 2. But still, I know the brand of ball in general down in the Columbus area. And I would say in the last 5 to 10 years, it is much improved. And now it's not just Cleveland, Canton, and Cincinnati that you worry about, but there are a lot of good football teams from the capital city.
That's going to be a great football game. I mean, that's a team that's winning 8, 9, 10 games a year if you track their records the past few years. So it's going to be a great game at Fawcett Stadium. Hopefully we're both in there at 2-0 and give the fans a great game to watch.
And I don't know if it's only appropriate based on the 2 classics you played a year ago, but your Federal League opener, you go to North Canton. You played them twice last year. I don't know what's more impressive, the scores. McKinley wins of 27-24 or 36-29. Maybe as a guy who likes offense, and I know you're a defensive guy, the all-time leading tackler at Steubenville, the 2 teams in those 2 games combined for 1,100 yards of total offense. I mean, they were 2 classic ball games a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, those both games were very good, hard-fought battles. They went down to the last possession, and Don Miro was a great player and gave us fits in both games. So to say the least, we're very happy he graduated and is not coming back again this season. But I'm sure their coaching staff, once again this year, will have a solid team, and I expect the same thing from them.
Quick comments about the rest of your schedule, beginning with Lake. You walked in with their new head coach, Coach Dan DeGeorge. Jeff Durbin retires after 23 years in that job.
Yeah, Jeff was a great man. I remember playing at Steubenville and Jeff bringing his Lake teams down, and his teams were always prepared. They always played hard, and it's sad to lose a coach with the stature of Jeff Durbin. So he'll be missed, and I hope he's enjoying his time away.
You go to Jackson week 6. They may have as many people back as anybody this year in the Federal League.
Yeah, Jackson, coaches over there, they do a great job. We got to travel over to Jackson this year. The one great thing in the Federal League is you have to bring it every single week. You got to play good football every week, or you're going to lose. There's great coaches and great teams in the Federal League, and that's why we're happy to be a part of it.
Back to Fawcett for Glen Oak. Scott Garcia got his team, as you did, to postseason play a year ago.
Yep, Glen Oak, that's a rivalry game for us. Didn't turn out the way we wanted it to turn out last year. Hopefully it'll be a different outcome.
You go to Perry in week 8, and I don't want to say what fascinates me about that, Keith Wakefield is back, and I followed, when I was in commercial TV, Keith Wakefield at Perry, Tom McDaniels at McKinley, and now he's back, and that adds a whole different dynamic to that rivalry.
Yeah, I haven't got a chance to meet Coach yet. I'm looking forward to doing that here tonight. But from what I hear, that Perry team will be ready to go and playing hard physical football.
Week 9, Boardman, their final year in the Federal League.
Yeah, we're sad to see him go. Boardman's a great, traditionally powerhouse in Division I. So, we're sad to see him go.
And I don't know what you say about week 10. We know who it is. It's Massillon. It's your place. 2 hard-fought games a year ago where I thought the difference was their key guys with key experience. Now, a lot of your key guys, in terms of players have a year under their belt, so hopefully that means a turning of the table.
Let's hope. I hope it's that easy, but you know, that game, anything can happen in that game. I mean, it's McKinley-Massillon. It's going to be packed. It's going to be a great football game.
Coach, all the best. Thanks
All right,
for the
thanks,
time.
Scott.
Kevin Henderson, Timken's head coach, joins me. And Coach, it seems hard to believe for me. Your 6th year at the helm?
Yes, this is
Wow.
6. Yes.
I want people to know who are channel surfing that as we tape this, you've only got 3-4 days of practice under your belts. I think sometimes when this airs, people will see it, maybe 1 scrimmage under their belts, maybe even 2 under your belts. But you're starting from square one. So I'm going to ask you, as I did to Coach Phillips, to talk about what has happened since the end of last season till the start of these 2-a-days, so people understand that football, in some respects, is becoming more of a year-round commitment than just, oh, by the way, it's time to play football.
Yes, one of the beautiful things we had coming out of last year was we had weightlifting classes, and that prepared our kids mentally to train for weightlifting. And what we got from that is they just started to compete with each other. And it's kind of like mushroom from that time and through the summer. And it's a beautiful thing. I know that we're stronger than we've ever been based on the fact that the kids are lifting and they're enjoying it now.
How does that translate into the mental side of football?
Well, if you've not prepared yourself physically, when things get tough late in the game, sometimes you may quit. But if you prepared yourself properly, your body is telling you can go more. So, and we talk about that. If you don't work hard in the weight room, you'll quit on your team. And we definitely don't want that to happen, and they've responded to that.
Judging by the shirt that you're wearing, I guess you're preparing over the next couple of weeks to unleash the beast. Tell us about that theme.
Well, I'll just say this, and again, it's based on the fact that we've lifted weights more, and the kids have taken it a lot more seriously this year, and we're a lot stronger than we've ever been, and we're a lot faster than we've ever been, and we have more skill than we've ever had. So if that combined with, as I tell them every day, the 4-part plan, if we could master the 4-part plan along with those other tools that we have, we could be pretty good.
Can you share the 4-point plan with us?
The 4-part plan is simply character, accountability, discipline, and hard work. So if we can master that in the classroom, on the field, and in life, we'll be fine.
You took that thought right out of my head, because that does translate across the board. Let's look at your schedule on a week-by-week, not so much specifically, but in terms of how it's changed, and it hasn't changed that much. You open against an East Canton team. That was a very competitive game a year ago. You hosted the game a year ago, and they won 21-13. Now you traveled to East Canton for this opener.
East Canton is always tough, always well coached. Steve's a good coach. I like Steve. Kind of did some things last year that let one get away from us, but that happens in football, and maybe we weren't prepared as well as we should have been. But they'll be a formidable opponent. They have a very good quarterback, and we'll have to do some things to stop him.
Week 2 is where the change is. You had Waterloo, and that's where you posted a victory, 26-7. This season, you'll host an Akron North team that posted a 1-9 mark a year ago.
Don't know much about them, so we anticipate getting out to see them once we start scrimmaging, and we'll try to figure out what they do and what we can do to try to stop them.
Let me mention something you may not be aware of, but the Timken Alumni Night at Fawcett Stadium will be at that home opener on Friday, September 6th, 7 p.m. In case you don't know about it, tickets are $15 per person, and we're told that includes a game ticket, eating football food in the press box, which is one of my specialties, and coupons are up to 50% off of Timken alumni merchandise. Now, for ticket information, you can call Bill at 330-526-6539 or email turbo56, that's TRBO56 at AOL.com. The ticket deadline is Monday, August 26th. So whether they're in the press box or in the stands, obviously you would hope for a nice turnout for that home opener and build on the confidence of the fan base as well as on the team itself.
Sure. And that's one thing we're preaching this year. Just come out and see us. We're excited as a staff about what we've seen thus far during our 7-on-7s and the first few practices we've had. As I said, we're we anticipate being highly competitive this year.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I thought rather than go into deep double checking, but I thought you played at Dalton a year ago, and it looks like you're making another road trip over there this year, and that's just probably one of those glitches in the schedule, and to give you 5 home games, 5 road games. As I recall, a couple years ago, you were very competitive with them. A year ago, they took you to the shed a little bit in terms of the final scoreboard.
Well, we beat them 2 years ago.
Okay.
We took them to the shed 2 years ago, and then, of course, that.
Oh, that's right, and they kind of
And,
used that as payback. Now
so-
my memory's reflected.
And they paid us back, as
Yeah.
you say, last year. So it's always competitive. In order for them to stay in the contract, we had to allow them. They had to come here twice, and then
Oh,
now we
okay,
have
so
to go
fair
there
is fair.
twice. Yeah. So.
Okay. So that should be an interesting game. Maybe it's your time for revenge this season. Now, obviously the Pac-7's a Pac-7, but they've shuffled the order on you a little bit. And while you have no say in that, and you just take them as they come, I'm curious the fact that for the first time in my memory, you actually open the Pac-7 season with CBCA. You get to host them. Also surprised to me because they put together some solid years that they were a 500 ball club a year ago. And assuming that everybody's back who was projected from Pac-7 teams and all, and this is going to be the theme in my mind of the Pac-7, the year of the running back. You got a nice young man, Shower, who gained 750 yards, and he's going to be the first of a lot of talented running backs you're going to have to try to slow down.
Well, I mean, we are a running-oriented league for the most part, and we've got some good backs. We've got a couple good backs in our stable. So, you know, you look at Indian Valley with Jake Davis, and it's going to be tough. So.
Nice segue because that's the next game. And there's a young man, 1,500 yards in 9 games, I should say 10 games. And no, take that back, 9 games. They made the playoffs. And, you know, Byers, a quarterback, threw for 800 yards. And you've got to, now you get to host them. I'm sorry, you have to go down to Indian Valley. And that's going to be a real challenge.
Always a challenge. Always well coached. Coach Lancaster does a great job with his football program. He's brought that program a long way, and as always, we'll have to be very well prepared to be competitive with Indian Valley.
You host Manchester, and Manchester is just that, Manchester. And I bet you some people say, "Oh, we were 8-4. That's disappointing." But they seem to be in postseason play every year. And when your head coach they've named the stadium after you. That's one reason why.
Well, I always say. In the state of Ohio, when you won over 300 football games, your teams will be well prepared. So we have to be, as always, well prepared for them because they're well coached. As simple as that. Perilous
the following week at home, but be careful. Their record 3-7. But when you've got guys back, and I'm talking athletes, I'm talking about football players and basketball players, other sport athletes. The quarterback Hunter Wells throwing for over 2,000 yards. Jeremy Mahaffey, a running back with close to 1,000 yards, averaging 9 yards per carry. And Austin Wyatt, a youngster, an underclassman, but he's had such an impact on all their sports programs over there. They're going to be a load.
Well, you mentioned, too, the running back, Mahaffey, and certainly with Hunter Wells being a Division I quarterback, you know, you better be prepared or you'll get embarrassed.
Tusky Valley the following week, and, of course, they've got a running back in Kyle Stewart, 750 yards. And that ball game a year ago, was it Fawcett? Got to travel this year.
Well, last time we went down there, I think it was overtime maybe.
That's right. That's right.
And so, you know, a lot of things that we can do to maybe prevent that from happening. So, again, we always have to be prepared.
And then Tuslaw, you'll go to their place. One of the classic memorable games a year ago, triple overtime. They win, but you laid it all out on the field as well. I look at that game as one of the highlights for Fawcett Stadium football this season. A few reflection on that, and of course they're back with DJ Blair, Cody Brewer, key contributors in that game as well as their season a year ago.
Well, that was a great football game. Unfortunately, we came out on the losing end, and as Nate will often remind me, but we'll be very well prepared for them again, hopefully, and as always, we anticipate them. They're always going to be well coached and tough, hard-nosed kids, so we'll see what happens.
Well, and tell Coach Nate that my feeling is after 35 years of doing that, when you play a game like that, there are no losers.
Yeah.
Everybody's a winner in
Yeah.
one form or another. Finally, Triway. The good news, they come to Fawcett Stadium. The bad news, they bring with them another Carmichael at quarterback, Parker, who threw for close to 2,800 yards in a 10-game schedule.
Always tough, always hard-nosed kids, always so physical. They're a physical football team, and if you're not prepared, you can be embarrassed. So,
we mentioned all these, players on the opposing team. Who are some of the key guys? Who are the guys early on that you expect to take the leadership roles and literally run with them?
Well, without question, Nick Johnson. He's a Division I kid. He is verbally committed to Bowling Green.
Oh, outstanding.
And along with Nick, hopefully providing some leadership for us, I'm sure that he will. We'll have returners like Charles Lennox, Randy Reed, Randy Hayes, Isaiah Smith, and so forth that will make vast contributions to us. Chris Carter, Jalen Hill, all of those kids are so much more knowledgeable about the game, and as I said, we've gotten tremendously stronger thus far.
And the beauty of some of those names you mentioned is they're getting the job done in the classroom as well.
Oh yes, and we've got a few of those kids that have already passed the ACT test. So,
Coach, all the best. Look forward to
Thank
following
you.
it
Appreciate
week by
it.
week this fall.
thank you.
Yes, we should look ahead on this Federal League and high school football preview, but with Don Hurtler Jr., I want to look back at two items before we start. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. I want to talk about a young man, Dom Yero, outstanding quarterback, outstanding backcourt player in basketball, and then he plays baseball so well, that's how he earns his college scholarship. I do believe in all my years of covering high school sports, he is one of the finest multi-sport athletes I've ever seen. Your view now you've had a chance and you've coached him and you've watched him and now you've stepped back. How does he rank on the list of athletes that you've been involved with either as a player or as a coach?
Well, first of all, it was great working with him because it was like on the sidelines talking to another man. You know, we had some good dialogue back and forth one-on-one, and we could talk sort of man-to-man, and I've known him since he was a young kid through his parents, and I also had the good fortune the last 3 seasons to volunteer for Coach Height with the baseball team, so I got a chance to work with him there also. Made big-time three-point shots. He could shoot it. He could do everything in the baseball arena. Football-wise, waited his turn, had his appendix problem at the end of his junior year, played a lot as a sophomore, could do everything, punt, kick. Didn't kick for us last year as much because he had enough on his plate, but as a quarterback and as a playmaker and a competitor and a dedicated young man to balance his time and to put a lot of things aside that other kids are doing, I've got nothing but 1,000% respect for Dom, his family, and it was just a joy to coach him. Not because he was such a great 3-sport athlete, but the way he was so determined and so competitive and so hard-nosed that he wasn't going to let your team lose. If he was, you were going to have to knock him out pretty much. And to come back and play the McKinley in the playoff game, even get on the field,
Right.
tells you everything about Dom. But one of the greatest competitors I've ever had, and one of the great gamers I've ever had.
Well, and I look at the two games between McKinley and Hoover, 27-24 regular season, 36-29 in postseason play. Combined offensive yards in those two games, 1,100 yards. Those are two of the best high school football games I saw a year ago.
Well, pretty good. I think that first game, they were much better than us, and we hung in there. And then by the end of the year, we had improved and stayed pretty healthy. And I think we evened things up there at the end and had our chances to win that game, but they were better than us that night by a touchdown. So.
You know better than I do. Even as good as Dom was, it wasn't a one-man show. And I look at the guys lost to graduation: Austin Feinberg and Sam Woods and Jim Hammondtree and Dave Johnson and John Zuckel, Joe Howard, and there are others. But all those players received some sort of postseason recognition. I love one of your key returnees, Luke Grandjean, was talked about in the repository as maybe being Hoover's best overall athlete. And consider who was his teammate, and I'm talking about Mr. Yero, that's quite an accomplishment. Is he going to be one of your leaders of this year?
Luke's already been elected captain, him and Alex Binney, doing a great job during our early two-a-days here. Luke's moved to quarterback. We'll still play some defense and do some other things. Coming off a little bit of an ankle from lacrosse season, so he's been a little bit slow this summer. We're just trying to take our time with him and get him as good as we can get. just needs a lot of reps and good athlete. We're going to miss him on the defensive side of the ball because we won't be able to play him there all the time where he's been a 2-year starter. And then he became such a tremendous receiver for us at that slot position last year. So we're losing a lot of positions by making him the quarterback, but he's by far our best guy right now at that position.
Early on, Stowe, Monroe Falls, the classic this year at Louisville. Avon Lake, 8-3, lost to state finalist Toledo Whitmer. So forget about the
And then
tough,
McKinley.
Right, exactly. And the Federal League as a whole. I mean, another challenging year. What are you looking for? And again, I tell people, we're taping this, you haven't even gotten a scrimmage under your belt.
Right.
By the time they see it, you will have. So I want to give you that tape delay advantage. And just talk about in general terms what you hope to see out
Well,
of this
as I
year's
look at our
edition.
schedule, we could win 10, we could lose 10. There's no sure win on the schedule, no sure loss. Stowe has everybody back, and they beat us 2 years ago. That guy's doing a great job up there with them. They have good athletes, good football players, and he's getting it going, so that's a challenge in the opener. And then, like you said, we go over to Louisville, and we haven't played very well over there in a long time, so we need to right that ship and at least play good football over there. And I know they have most of their guys back. And then we go up to Avon Lake. They have everybody back. They've got 3 Division I guys and very well coached, and it's going to be a long trip. And you'd like to sort of play a Canada team in between Louisville and McKinley, and then McKinley's our first league game week 4 at home, and then we have Perry. So we're just sort of breaking it down, looking at those first 3 non-league games and see how we've got to mature early. We've got 2 or 3 guys back on offense and 2 or 3 guys back on defense. That's it. So we're going to have all new faces in there, and you don't know how they're going to respond and how they're going to do when the lights come on Friday.
Don Hurler Jr., thanks for the time.
All right. Thanks very much.
Remember that old expression, the more things change, the more they stay the same? Well, in the case of Perry football, we welcome back Keith Wakefield. In his first stint between 1982 and 2003, winning almost 70% of the time, 11 Federal League titles in 22 years, state playoffs 4 times, advancing to the 2000 Division I state semifinals. You and I talked about the fact that when you got over to Perry in '82, I started the old Channel 67. We've been down the road quite a few times. And now you're back after stops at St. Vincent St. Mary and working with Larry Karras over at Mount Union. I'm wondering, coaching now, and again, you've just started with the scrimmage, but you've worked with the kids, I know, in the off season, or have gotten to know them, they've gotten to know you. Your coaching style, your first time around, and how you may have, or have you, adjusted given the ball players, of today versus the ball players of 2003?
Well, not philosophy I haven't changed. It's still a mentally tough, hard work, accountability type program. That's what we're trying to develop again, and I think they've lost that a little, and we're trying to gain some of that back. But yeah, I think throwing the ball, defending the pass, those types of things I know so much more about now because working with Larry and Vince over there, and I coach on both sides of the ball a couple different times, and offensive line and linebacker. So, I feel especially blessed of the passing game now because I've got some knowledge of it and I understand it better. I understand how to defend it better too. So hopefully we'll be able to incorporate more of that into the program. So
Your philosophy with the young men, lost a lot to graduation, but you have an underclassman in Braxton Berry who ran for almost 900 yards a year ago. Ronnie Humphrey was one of the anchors of the offensive line. If I come into your program and I did a lot a year ago, does that hold any weight with you, or does everybody start with a clean slate and ask themselves to you?
Well, I think that's the advantage for kids. I mean, it's a fair chance for everybody. I don't know the kids. Mm-hmm. I didn't know any of them really. There's 6 or 7 that their dads had played for me back in the 80s. So that's how old I am. But yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for somebody to come into the program, want to get a good start, because I don't know them. So.
And you and I were talking, and one of the big things that happened in the early years, 82, 83, 84, was just the fact that Perry and Massillon got together for scrimmages. And I came out with a camera, I remember, early on in those years, just to cover the scrimmage, and that made some news. And here we are, fast forward, and your first game of this season is against the Tigers.
Yeah, they'll be good. They're a really good team, and return a lot of good players from a year ago. So, yeah, it'll be a tough test for us, obviously.
And then you hook up with Central Catholic, and we talk about 2 coaches with experience and wins and everything. It's you and Lowell Kleinfelder, and a nice backyard rivalry.
Yeah, Lowell's an honest guy, works hard at it. His kids play tough. It's always a physical game when we play them, and it's close. You don't have to travel very far. No one does, and it's been a good game over the years.
And then you're hosting those two. I think are on the road, or at least a couple
Yes,
on Thursday.
they are.
And then your home opener is against the new Philly team, which incidentally, in a lot of years, recently, under Fawcett Stadium in postseason play.
Yeah, they'll be good. I watched them last year, and Dan If's a good personal friend of mine at Dover, so I've kind of followed him the last few years, and
Like he has some Perry connections, does he not?
and Philly's been real solid. And they'll be real good this year. Good running back and solid quarterback, so it'll be a tough test too.
And how about last question, Federal League in general?
I don't know. I mean, I really don't know who has what, or I never really cared about that, and I'm more concerned about my guys and what they're going to do. And you know, I got a good staff. All my staff either played for me or coached for me, and so I'm real pleased with that. And they know what the program was and where we want to go again, and so I feel pretty good about that.
I tell people the older I get, the more things seem to come full circle.
Sure.
So for having Keith Wakefield back at Perry, we're looking forward to it. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
Scott Garcia joins us now, head coach of Canton Glen Oak High School. 8-3 a year ago. Another classic with the Bulldogs coming away with a 24-21 victory. You're also the athletic director. We mentioned before we rolled tape. How challenging is it to balance those jobs, especially during football season?
You know, it's really a matter of being organized and getting things set, you know, during the summer. So there's a lot more prep time and work that I do in the summertime. I think the other thing is just having a lot of good help around me, and the people at Glen Oak are great. And you know, it's tough sometimes. There's no doubt about it. But you know, with great support and just being a little bit organized, it's working out real well.
I think I counted almost a dozen Golden Eagles who were given postseason recognition, be it Federal League or All County, what have you. And I think it breaks down to something like 7 seniors and 4 underclassmen. In general terms, what is the youth of your team? Where do you feel you bring back experience? And how are you going to try from now through 2 scrimmages and getting ready for the opener to get those kids some experience?
Yeah, that's you know, we only have 2 starters back on offense and 2 back on defense, and it's probably the most inexperienced team we've had. But there's some guys that got some playing time last year. We played a lot of sophomores last year in some, you know, limited roles, so they got some varsity experience. And you know, we added a 3rd scrimmage this year, and you know, hopefully that helps. You know, getting them a little bit of experience going into the season, being able to see some different looks and some good competition before we get it going.
You start with Akron Firestone and then Massillon, 2 teams you're familiar with because you've played them before. Firestone, a 500 team. Of course, Massillon going deeper in the playoffs than any Stark County representative. Your thoughts of those first 2 games?
Yeah, Firestone's a school that they always have tough kids. Coach Flossie's been around the Akron area for years. You know, his family and himself have been around a long time, and they're always well coached. They're tough kids. They'll have a lot of speed. Then, you know, week 2 in Massillon, you know, it's always been a great game. You know, this will be the 5th year that we've gone against them, and you know, they're loaded this year. So, you know, we expect a tough one that week 2 over in Massillon.
And I don't know which hat you were wearing when you found out you had to quickly move toward replacing a week 3 opponent. You got the job done with a team from the Buffalo, New York area, but how difficult was that? And was that done pretty much within the last few? I mean, how close did you come to the start of the season?
It was tough. We didn't find out from Euclid that Euclid wasn't going to play us until I think it was early March.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
Okay.
you know, we went out and we were calling just about everywhere we could to try to find a game that late. So I think right before spring break this past year, a school from Buffalo contacted us, and we ended up hooking up with them for a year.
And of course, you've had some great battles with Canton McKinley over your time there. Comment about them and a comment about the Federal League in general as we wrap this up.
Yeah, you know, anytime you play Canton McKinley, it's always a great game. You know, this goes back when I played. You know, it's a neighborhood rivalry. You know, there's a lot of our guys know their guys, and they grew up together, and it's been a fun game for us. You know, we've gone back and forth the last few years. It's been great contests, and we look forward to another one this year. And then, with the Federal League, it's such a well-coached league. People don't realize how well-coached it is. Kids play hard. They play for their school. They, play for their communities. And it's never, depends. Any given night, anybody can knock one of the Federal League schools off. It's just so well-balanced and well-coached that, it's always interesting on Friday nights with Federal League football.
Appreciate the time as always, Scott. Good
All
to see
right,
you.
thanks.
Talking Jackson Polar Bears football in his 5th season as head coach Bo Balderson. And Coach, I remember when we sat down for the very first time. It doesn't seem like 5 years. How about for you? And how comfortable do you feel now in this position and being able to develop the program, not just obviously at the varsity level, but going down to JV, freshman, and beyond?
Yeah, it's been a fast 5 years, but the continuity of staff and teaching the same thing at the high school, getting to know the kids, not just in football and everything else, makes this season so far, the off season has gone tremendous, probably the best we've had. And that has to do with the comfortableness of myself along with the other guys on staff, knowing each other, becoming all good friends as well, not just sitting there during times of football season, and coaching together. But I think that's helped, and I think that relationship that we have has extended into the football program. We have more numbers this year than we've ever had. It's dating back probably to the early 2000s. So we're really excited about it, and it's been a fast 5 years, but it's been a tiring 5 years as well. So it's been a lot of work.
The older I get, the more I look into box scores and then look again. And I looked at your box score against McKinley, and the final score was 40-15. But if you dig deeper,
Right.
you led 15-14 at the end of 3. And then suddenly McKinley exploded for 26 unanswered points. And the interesting thing about that is, as I looked at the individual leaders, your quarterback, Langenfeld, threw for 202 yards and a couple of scores. McKinley's Jared Smith ran for 161 yards, scoring 3 times. And the reason I bring that up is both young men will be back this year for the rematch. And I'm wondering, off of that game, lessons learned, that here you stood toe-to-toe with a traditional power and went back and forth for 3 quarters, and then it just got away from you. Are there lessons to be learned from a game like that, no matter who the opponent was, in order to improve this season?
Yeah, and I think that, every game last year, we were right in there. Even the 5 we lost, 3 of which we had 15 total turnovers. So I think it built that belief, hey, we're ready to play with anybody in the county. And I think that's the mentality that our guys have taken on, and it's really extended into that off season, into the weight room. We're as strong as we've ever been. All 5 of our guys up front are returning. Plus, we added a lot of juniors into the mix this year, so we have a lot of depth. Probably for the first time, be able to 2 platoon, maybe with the exception of a couple kids. But it's those types of games when we're winning, and when the fourth quarter, I think it was 15-14 as the fourth quarter started. They blocked a punt, and it just kind of got out of hand towards late in that fourth quarter. But I think that opened our kids' eyes and said it doesn't matter who we're going against. If we play as a team and do the things in the offseason that we need to do, we can play with anybody in the county. So our kids are excited about the opportunities that we have this year.
Among those talents lost to graduation, a pair of outstanding two-way players in Charlie Deere and Nate Locke. What interests me about some of the people you've got back, you've got the skilled kids like your quarterback and this place kicker, Costin. 9 out of 10 field goals, 23 out of 24 extra points. I mean, the Browns would take numbers like that. But then you've also got a pair of two-way linemen up front, and Hostetler and Rickenbaugh, who are back. Do you like your balance of experience in terms of guys on the front line and guys in the skilled positions?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, our guys up front, like I said, we return all 5 starters from last year. We have a couple guys that are actually going to replace some of those so they can focus more on the defensive side of the ball. So we really have 8 guys across that can play a single position for us. Our quarterback, he's the all-time, he'll hopefully, knock on wood, if everything pans out within the first game or two, he'll be the all-time leading passer in Jackson history. So, he's a 4.5 student. Ivy League schools are looking at him. He's got some offers from the Patriot League. He's like having another coach on the field. We have some younger receivers that are ready to step up. A lot of juniors. One senior just came out this during 2 days. He's looked really good so far. So, we have a lot of compliments to that offensive line that we're kind of holding our hat on this year.
Interesting first 3 games, an Akron East team that didn't win a game a year ago, a Green team that may be part of the Federal League in future years. It always plays Federal League teams tough, whether it's you, Lake, or whoever. And then an Ursuline team, I remember not that many years ago, they came to Fawcett Stadium, destroyed everybody in their wake in winning a state title. Your thoughts about your non-league schedule?
Our non-league, and then we play Northwest, a little backyard
Yes,
thing in week
right.
7 as well. Our non-league schedule is a very good one for us. The Ursuline is going to be at our place. Their quarterback's going to Michigan State. He's the real deal. We've seen him on film for a little while. And that's a challenge that we're all looking forward to. And every one of those games should be a pretty good crowd for us. So it puts us in a really good position to enter in the Federal League.
And then the Federal League is
Yeah.
the Federal League. Isn't
Yeah.
that about as easy a way to put it?
That's exactly it.
Week in, week out.
Right. There's no easy matchups.
Coach, appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot.
We talk Massillon football now with Jason Hall. And Coach, congratulations on last season, 11-2, the last team standing in Stark County in postseason play. 2 classic games with the Bulldogs, victories of 37-29, 28-19. I would say, looking back on those 2 games, that the difference from my perspective watching those games was how your experienced ball players played big in the big games. Everybody from your quarterback to your running back to Conley, so on and so forth. Would you agree in general with that simplified explanation?
Well, I think we definitely took advantage of our big plays, and those guys were just huge for our team last year. We were a real big play team, all season long, and Garyon and Kyle Kemp and Brody Ton and Kentrell Taylor. We just had a great senior class that were great leaders. So I guess we really leaned on them in the crucial times, and they always came through. So I think that's probably a great way to put it.
Maybe another way to put it is then who are the guys that you hope can step up? Not necessarily put the numbers together that those guys did, but who can be the leaders of your team?
Well, we return a pretty solid nucleus of guys. I think the strength of our team this year is going to be our offensive line. It's going to be the biggest and most athletic line since I've been at Massillon, where most of them are around 270 pounds, and they can move pretty well. And we'll be breaking in a new quarterback, but Bo Huffman's back, Marcus Whitfield. We have a couple players that moved into our school district in the off season that are big impact guys. So it's going to be exciting. There's a handful of guys that have just been waiting their turn. LaRon Wilson's been waiting his turn to get on the field. He played behind Ryan Moore, so I'm excited to see him play. You'll see J.D. Crabtree, who played big in both those McKinley games. You'll see him running the ball, not just playing defense. And Michael Smith started at safety as a sophomore last year. He's back. It's just a great senior class coming. I'm excited about this team just because they come every day ready to play and practice. It's a real fun group to be around.
Interesting schedule with a couple of Thursday games against Federal League teams, the return of Keith Wakefield and Perry High School. Glen Oak, really classic battles with them over the years. Glen Oak in postseason play. And you go to Warren Harding, and they finished at 9-2, and they were a postseason finalist. I know the challenges of scheduling an independent schedule, but then we could talk about Steubenville, and of course I have to mention Week 10.
Yeah, I think if you look at our schedule, it's probably one of the toughest, definitely in this area. I think we play 8 playoff teams on our schedule, so. But that's what we're used to, playing a tough schedule. I think our community and our players expect it, so we look forward to it. We look forward to that Warren Harding game. It took a year off because of our schedules, but we signed back with them, and don't forget about St. V's is on that schedule. So we don't have any time to break into the season. We start right off with 2 local teams that are it's going to be heated. Big crowd games with Perry and Glen Oak, so it's exciting. And then obviously our grand finale with McKinley, and the last couple of years, those have just been electric games, and that's what we want. I think if you talk to Todd and the McKinley faithful, and Massillon and the Massillon faithful, we want both teams to be 9-0 going into that game. So we're excited. I think they do a good job. So I expect another sold-out crowd Week 10 with a lot of stuff on the line.
Jason Hall, we appreciate the time.
Thank you. Thank you.
For the second time in this hour, I talk about the fact the older I get, the more things seem to come full circle. And I was telling the new head coach of the Lake Blue Streaks that as I was coming up through the ranks of local broadcasting, I came on board around the same time as three iconic coaches, Tom McDaniels at McKinley, Keith Wakefield at Perry, and Jeff Durbin at Light came on the scene. So what happens now, fast forward all these years, more than 2 decades later, and of course Tom has 2 young sons who are in coaching in the NFL. Jeff has just retired, and Keith has just returned, and now Dan DeGeorge joins us. Of course, no stranger to Lake football offensive coordinator the last decade. But what's it like replacing not only an iconic coach on the field, but such a class act off the field as Jeff Durbin?
Yeah, first of all, obviously Coach Durbin is a legend, very, very good coach. More importantly, just a great guy. I was lucky enough to learn so much from him. You don't really replace that. You can't replace a Jeff Durbin. I've said multiple times, I'm not going to be the next Jeff Durbin. I can't be. I'm going to do a lot of the things that he taught me. He ran a program based upon honesty and hard work, integrity, overcoming adversity, things of that nature, and I'm going to tailor my program that exact same way. So.
But I would think if I'm a Lake player, I'm very comfortable because I know you, you know me, and the fact that helps in that transition from a Jeff Durbin.
I think it's been real helpful for the kids. Obviously, they were very sad to see Coach go. I mean, he's such a large part of Lake football, pretty much built their tradition there, and in my opinion should have something, stadium, field, something named after him, well-deserved. But I think the kids have adjusted to the transition pretty well and are working just as hard as they normally would have.
You've got a young running back coming back, and I hate to single out any individual player, but let's face it, he ran very well against McKinley. In fact, he ran very well against everybody.
He did. Matt Blasiola is very, very good high school running back and had very good statistical season last year. At times did a lot of it on his own. We weren't as good as we should have been up front, and that's something we've really been working on hard this summer, being more consistent. We also have a couple other real good athletes that we're hoping to get the ball to as well. So.
As we look at your schedule, as usual, Lake plays a very competitive non-league schedule before you ever see the Federal League, and that includes Green, traditional rival that may be part of the Federal League down the line, a Hudson team to make postseason play, and an Olentangy Liberty team that went 7-3. And you're familiar with several of these teams because you played them in recent years.
Sure, yeah, same schedule as last year, so our non-league is very tough. It does get us prepared for the meat grinder of the Federal League. So we really need to have some success in those first 3 weeks for us to have a long-term success over the season.
And a quick comment on the Federal League in general.
Just waiting to hear. Well, don't really have much control of it, and if Green comes in, that's great. If not, we just move forward as is.
And it sounds like it's going to be, anybody's game any week, given that's Federal League football.
Right, exactly.
Coach, I appreciate the time.
Thanks for having me.
Joining us, and good luck to you. And I want to say thank you very much to everyone that's been part of this show, the coaches that we featured, McKinley, Timken, and most of the opponents playing the Bulldogs this year. Thanks to Trent Comer and Bill Widener of CCS TV. And as always, most of all, my thanks to you for joining.